back when he was at Mason, what set him apart from the rest of the wrestlers that he was like competing with at the time? Like, was there anything that he did that made you think this kid's gonna be successful?
You know, it's kind of interesting story. I think he played basketball in junior high, and his family, a bunch of wrestlers. Dad wrestled in college. Brother was on the wrestling team, so it was kind of. I think he kind of knew that might be a good place for him to go. So, you know, we got him out as a freshman, and you know, obviously he was an athletic kid, which, but he was young. I mean, he was, and just not developed. So, you know, the biggest thing that I think was that he was a competitor. So, you know, being a wrestler, being in that sport, and being a one-on-one, you have to be a competitor. So he had that natural ability, and he just didn't like losing. And you know, I think his freshman year he struggled a little bit, even on the freshman level, because, you know, he just didn't understand the sport enough. So he learned how to lose, which I think is key, because then he was able to really kind of focus on what he needed to do to be really good at the sport and be a champion. And so, you know, his work ethic and the fact that he just disdained losing was probably, you know, the biggest attribute that you could build on as a coach, because you had a kid that those two things he would work to change. And so, you know, the time he was a freshman to a senior, you know, he did just that. I mean, he really trained for football and wrestling year round. So, you know, it did set him apart. Not everybody has that competitive drive that you need to be a champion, and he had that in him, and I think that was kind of fostered at home as well with his dad and his brother. It just was a competitive household.
How did his teammates view Josh when they wrestled with him? Like, they look up to him maybe? Or?
You know, as a freshman, sophomore, and even into junior year, Josh was, you know, he was the guy that could always lighten the mood. He was fun to be around as a coach, and, you know, his teammates liked being around him. And so, you know, when times in the grind of a season, he had a way of lightening the mood in the room. And so, I think he brought you know, a sense of energy, and yet a sense of fun to you know, to a practice that might be pretty intense. So, you know, from that standpoint, and then the fact that, you know, he expected a lot out of himself, but he also expected a lot out of his teammates, and that was really evident his senior year. We had a really good team. We ended up finishing 11th in the state, and Robert Shepard, our freshman at the time, who was a sophomore, you know, returning state placer, he got injured and had surgery right towards the end of the season. I mean, it could have been, you know, it could have been a really special season from a state level, because, you know, we were ranked in the top 5 or 6 that year, and you know, with that injury, we dropped to 11th, and but you know, I think that was because he brought that competition level. He expected everybody on the team to win, like, and you know, so kids stepping on the mat, I think they were, and he's a big guy, I think they were like, well, Josh expects me to win, so I need to win. So, you know, he was a leader in that sense.
What types of things did Josh do to establish himself as a leader?
Yeah, kind of addressed it a little bit, but, you know, the fact that he did the little things. He worked out extra. He'd come in on Sundays and get the lifts in. He would stay after practice and do the work. He did the camps. He did the little things that sometimes nobody wants to do. I think the other thing, too, is he's a pretty humble kid. For as much success as he had at the time and was having at the time, he was pretty humble. And I think that's, you know, I think that's probably a pretty good sign of a leader. He inspired kids to be better, but he was humble about his accomplishments.
Did he ever talk to you about his aspirations or what he hoped to do as he grew older? Like, has he always wanted to play in the NFL? Do you know?
You know, I think every kid dreams about that. but when did that dream kind of become a reality for him? I think he just focused on getting better. And I think a big thing for Josh was the fact that the guy that he was on the line with ended up getting drafted and plays for, I believe, the Jets. He was drafted in the 3rd round. And that kid was a definite NFL recruit from the time that he was starting at Kent State. So Josh being next to him on the line, he was a tackle, Josh was a guard. Josh being next to him on the line was the reason that, I believe Josh started to see himself as an NFL player. And, he's a competitor, so he didn't want to get outdone by the guy that was right next to him on the line. So there was some internal competition to do better than the guy next to you on the line from an internal standpoint. So I think that's what really propelled him to realize that, hey, I might have a shot at this. And, by the time he was a senior, I went down to watch him play at Kentucky. It was an early game, his senior season, and, you could just tell in talking with him, too, that he had took that next step as an athlete and that next level of confidence that he knew he had a shot. And so, and so that was, it wasn't a dream anymore. It was something that he actually believed that, was a possibility, and it played out later that year.
How do you think Josh's success in the wrestling translated to the football?
It was a natural transition. For an offensive lineman, you're engaged one-on-one with the guy in front of you. Wrestler, you're engaged with the guy right in front of you. And the footwork skills and hand fighting skills, they just don't get. We work on that for 2 hours every day. Football, you may or may not be working on that for 2 hours a day, but we're literally working on those positions for 2 hours a day during a season. And so, that's why it's a natural transition. And it's why the NFL and college scouts, that's why they give wrestlers the credit that they get on the scouting sheets, because it's the intangible that they know that these guys are coming to their team with those skills, kind of honed in on. And you'd be surprised if you look at the NFL rosters, how many have a wrestling background on the offense, defense line, and linebackers. It's pretty startling when, even if it was minimal experience, just because it's something that focuses on specific skills that, in football practice, you're going to work on them, but there's other things that you got to accomplish as well.
Last question. What was going through your mind when you first saw Josh walk onto that field in such a big game?
Yeah, on Sunday, it was a good day at our household. I mean, it was pretty cool. I got 2 sons, a daughter, my wife. We're just, we sat and watched football. My son's in 3rd grade, so he's, he kind of understands what's going on. My younger son has no clue, but, it was just, I felt proud to have been able to just have that experience. As a dad, I think my relationship with Josh's dad, Nic Kline, was what I focused on the most during that game. I was excited for Josh, and I'm watching Josh every play, but my mind was going, how cool is this for his dad to be able to experience that, having a kid, and to be able to go, man, if that was my kid, how good would that feel? And so for me, I was reflecting on, how proud the Kline family must be of their son. I was also really excited for Chad Kline, his brother. Chad just was the warrior in that family. Josh got tough because of Chad. Chad's was a 160-pound kid, wasn't built like Josh, but Chad had the heart of the line. He's one of the toughest kids I've ever coached. He was way tougher than Josh, and I mean that. Anybody that knows Chad knows that, and Josh would say the same thing. Josh knows that his brother's is probably what made him kind of what he is. I think so. yeah, it was cool.